Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Literature Lovers Night Out. We're thrilled to have you here. On behalf of everyone at Valley Bookseller in beautiful downtown Stillwater, Minnesota, I am thrilled to welcome you to this evening's program, a special evening with three fabulous suspense and mystery authors. I'm Pamela Klingerhorn, and I would love to know in the chat box where you are joining the program from. I'm sure we have a lot of people in Minnesota, but we love finding out what other 49 states are represented. So please feel free to type that into the chat box. We'll be monitoring that all evening. We got Chicago. Hi, Christina. Say hello to Maria for me. I hope she's making a full recovery. My next door neighbor, Laura, is joining us tonight. Glad to see you all. Ooh, Maine, Pennsylvania. Great. We love this. Let's try and get all 50 states represented. Tonight, if you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A box, which if you take your cursor to the bottom of the screen, you will see some icons. It's over to the far right, and I will be monitoring that for questions for each of the authors, and we will take them as they are speaking this evening. Tonight, we are so thrilled to have, as I said, these three fine authors with us. We have Zoje Stage joining us from Pittsburgh. We have Samantha Downing joining us from the New Orleans area, and Sujata Massey, who is at her home in Baltimore. And I am here in Chanhassen, Minnesota, and representing all of the team at Valley Bookseller in Stillwater, Minnesota. So we are thrilled to have you. Oh, I see we've got a couple of Minnesota representatives here. That's great. Thanks for everyone for joining us. So we are going to get started so that we can maximize our time with these wonderful authors who so graciously agreed to participate in the program this evening. As I said, we have Sujata Massey, Samantha Downing, and Zoje Stage. They each have a new novel, as well as some spectacular early novels to their credits. While they're speaking, I will be putting up links for the shopping cart in the chat box, and all you have to do is copy and paste those into your browser, and you can fill up your shopping cart at Valley Bookseller and get those either sent directly to you or pick them up in the store. We have signed book plates from all the authors, so it's the next best thing to being in person. You can still get a signed copy of the book, and don't forget they make fabulous gifts. If you're hosting a big Labor Day party and want to give out Labor Day gifts, these are your go-tos right here. And birthday gifts, all that kind of stuff. Stock up tonight. It's a great way to get your reading list filled up, as well as planning ahead for fall and the holidays. So our first speaker tonight is going to be Sujata Massey. So we will have Zoje and Samantha turn off their cameras for now. We'll see you soon. And Sujata actually grew up here in the Twin Cities and still has family, so we're going to claim her as one of our hometown heroes. Sujata is the author of many books, but most recently, the popular mystery series that starts with The Widows of Malabar Hill. Thanks for holding that up. Yes. She has created a young, smart, and brave solicitor named Perveen Mystery in 1920s India for these historical legal mysteries. The Widows of Malabar Hill won the Agatha Award, the Macavity Award, the Mary Higgins Clark Award, and was the top pick for the 2019 American Library Association's reading list for mystery. I got hooked on the Perveen Mystery series after seeing The Widows of Malabar Hill listed at the top of the audiobooks for 2019, and it truly is a spectacular audiobook production. The next book in this series is The Saddapur Moonstone. You want to hold that one up for us? Thank you. I love these covers. I just think that they're so evocative of the stories and the setting. And now Sujata has recently released the third installment in the series called The Bombay Prince. Valley Booksellers has all three titles in stock and ready for you to either pick them up or be sent to your home, and you will receive a signed book plate with any of those titles until they run out. So please put your hands together and join me in welcoming Sujata Massey to our virtual stage tonight at Literature Lovers Night Out. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here, Pamela, and thanks to everybody who is tuning in. And first of all, I want to, explain my Minnesota connection. I was born in Britain. My father's from India, my mom's from Germany, and we emigrated to the US when I was a young child, hence I don't have a cute English accent anymore. And I attended the Roseville area school starting in second grade. And so I was in Minnesota during those school years, and then I went east to college and ultimately out into the world to start my mystery writing career. So I've been writing mysteries for about 25 years. And my first series is set in Japan. And this series that I'm so excited about started in 2018. But the groundwork started quite a bit earlier. I became really interested in writing about what India was like during the waning decades of British rule in India. And the British had been in India, they had come in the 1600s. There were a whole lot of colonials there, all kinds of countries. But they wound up sort of prevailing. And from 1857 to 1947, most of the Indian subcontinent was under British rule. And so that meant, for the Indian people, a really disjointed kind of life, because there were some people who did okay with British rule because they had managed to get preferential contracts, and they might have been royalty, so they were allowed to keep their sort of their kingdoms as long as they said they were loyal to the British rule. So there were some who did okay, but then there were a lot of people that didn't. And so my books are about that suspenseful world that people were living in, and what it was like to be a young, bright woman at that time, trying to seek justice for other people under this government, and also, just trying to have a good life, trying to get ahead a little bit, and, stay in a good communication with your parents, and, just maybe have some happiness in life. So that's my heroine, Perveen Mystery, who is at age 23. She has come home to practice law with her father. She's had an Oxford education, but because it's 1921, the university did not recognize women with degrees. So you could do all the classes, and you could actually work as a solicitor, which is the British system. The lawyers were either solicitors who did contract work outside of the courtroom, or people that were the barristers who argued cases. So women could be a solicitor, and that's what Perveen is. And so in the first book in the series, The Widows of Malabar Hill, Perveen learns about a situation where they have a client who's a wealthy gentleman who's passed away, and he's left 3 widows. And the reason he's left 3 widows is he's Muslim, and they're under law at the time. You could have up to 3 wives. But when you've got 3 wives and you've got, 5 children, the pie is split all over the place in terms of inheritance. And you're probably going to guess that the baby boy is the one who would get the most of the money, right? And then Perveen learns that the widows may be tricked out of their inheritance, or even worse. So she gets involved in helping them, and that case turns to murder, and she winds up figuring out what happened with her friend Alice Hobson Jones, who is another friend from Oxford who lives in Bombay with her. And so this is a good start to the series, because you learn about Perveen's own life, why she became a lawyer. And she has some skeletons in her closet, and that impact the way that she works with other women, and how strongly she feels about justice. The second book in the series is also out in paperback. and that's called the Satakur Moonstone. And in this book, I created a fictional royal state. Now, I mentioned at the start of my talk that part of the landmass of, what we know now as India and Pakistan, part of that was ruled by Hindus and Muslims and Sikhs who had, for whatever reason, their families had control over these areas. So there were close to 600 of these princely states. And in those places, the law was determined by the monarch, and usually conditions for peasants were really bad. And very often the royal women could not be seen by any people in the princely state, because that would dishonor them if their face was seen. And so they certainly couldn't speak to a lawyer if something was going wrong, because they couldn't speak to a man. They couldn't speak to anybody who, was outside of the palace. So Praveen goes in because she's heard a rumor that there's a problem with there's a young Maharaja who's like 12 years old, and it's time for him to go to college or to go to boarding school. And there's a disagreement between his mother and the mother-in-law. And so she goes to the palace and all kinds of mayhem break loose. And I had fun writing this book because I talked with people who either were from a royal family or close to a royal family. And I also visited a spectacular palace in Rajasthan. Now, you'll have to go to my website and look at some of my tips about traveling in India, because a lot of the places that I write about are real. And that once we get out of this crazy pandemic, we'll hopefully start traveling again. And so the current book, The Bombay Prince, came out in June. And what's exciting about this for me is I went into the world of colleges. And there have been colleges in India since the early 19th century. And one interesting thing in Bombay is the first college that was founded, it was founded actually by Scottish missionaries, was originally female and male students. So in this city that I write about, Bombay, where the first women lawyers were practicing in reality in India, there was this long history of coeducation, but that doesn't mean it was equal or safe or enjoyable. And I researched at this old college in Mumbai, as Bombay is now called, and I really sort of got a feeling for what it was like to be a female student. And the year that this book takes place, 1921, a crazy, momentous event happened. Prince Edward VIII, who later became the Duke of Windsor, who abdicated, but he was Prince Edward at that time in 1921. And he was sent to India on a goodwill tour to try to restore faith and enthusiasm for British rule. But Mahatma Gandhi was raising all kinds of, freedom support in Bombay at the same time. And he held this rally the same day that the prince arrived. And there was a tremendous riot that lasted 3 days, and there was loss of life and property destruction. If you think about what happened January 6th, it was quite similar. So this was a real event, and I knew I wanted to write about it. So I write about what it's like for Praveen, who's a religious minority who becomes a targeted group during these political riots. And at the same time, this wonderful young female student she knows is killed. And the expectation is it's got to be the rioters. It's got to be because she was persecuted by a rioter. But Praveen really wants to get the full story. And she wants to help the girl's family, who's absolutely shocked and grieving about what has happened. And a very intricate plot. There's a lot of true stuff in there, and then there's a lot of, exciting characters. There's even characters from the United States, because the press corps traveled. The international press was there, and so I think it's a pretty surprising ending, is what I hear from people. So those are the three books I have so far in the Praveen Mystery series, and the next one I'm writing is due this fall, and it probably be out in the next year or the year after. And that's a mystery about the world of women's reproductive rights. So with that, I'm going to close my talk and listen to what Pamela has to say.
Thank you so much, Sujata. Ooh, I can't wait to get my hands on the next installment. I just loved your character so much. And I have to tell you, when I was listening to the audiobook of The Widows of Malabar Hill, there's a great betrayal in that story. Of course, you know what I'm talking about, but I don't want to give anything away. And I just felt that so personally for Praveen. It was like she was my daughter. And I was so stunned and saddened for her because I really believed in this character, and I was as fooled as she was. And it was just, it came across so personally. You just did an excellent job. So I love that story. She's a great character.
Thank you.
I have a question for you myself about the Saddapur Moonstone. The whole time I was reading it, I was hearkening back to that old classic, The Moonstone by William Wilkie Collins. Have you read that, and was that an inspiration at all?
My dad gave me that book for Christmas when I was about 12 years old. So I've always had the Moonstone. I was always thinking about the Moonstone. I used to even wear a Moonstone necklace all the time. But the reality was I was originally going to use a Moonstone as there's a missing jewel in this book, just like in the Wilkie Collins novel. But the truth is, Moonstones are very inexpensive. So I had to be really, I'm trying to remember what I wound up doing with that. But I had to think about, what am I going to do for the jewel? I have to, go around to jewelers when I'm in India and try to figure out what's an Indian stone, what's it worth, how am I going to tell this story?
Well, that was exciting. I could be wrong on this, but I believe, maybe you know the answer, that The Moonstone is credited as being the first detective novel ever written.
I've heard it. I think there are arguments about what is the first detective novel, but I've definitely heard about that. Also, Mysteries of Udolpho, which is somebody's going to remember who that's by, but I read that in one of my women's studies classes. And that's really a suspense novel. It's like a gothic suspense novel.
Maybe one of our panelists, or one of our attendees rather, can Google for us and put that information in the link. And it's called The Mystery of Udolpho.
Yeah, Udolpho, I think.
All right. Oh, I will have to investigate that one as well. Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing all the information about your three fabulous novels. The Widows of Malabar Hill and the Saddapur Moonstone are both in paperback, and the brand new Bombay Prince is in hardcover. They're all available at Valley Bookseller. I have put links in the chat box if you want to fill up your shopping cart. And we will bring Sujata back at the end of the program in case you have some more questions for her. Thank you so much. We are going to move on to our next guest, Samantha Downing. Thank you, Sujata.
Thank you.
Welcome, Samantha.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you for joining us from New Orleans. We have 90 some degrees here in Minnesota, but chances are you're hotter.
Chances are, yes.
And steamier, I would imagine.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes. Well, thank you for joining us this evening. I am very, very pleased to at long last be hosting you after being such a fan of your work for such a long time. You might recognize Samantha's name as the USA Today best-selling author of her first novel, My Lovely Wife. My Lovely Wife has been optioned or taken up by Amazon Studios and Nicole Kidman. They have partnered to produce a feature film, which is based on the book. And I hope Samantha will share some details about that with us in her talk. She's also the author of her second novel, He Started It, and now hot off the press, For Your Own Good. They're all published by Berkeley. And this one, Robert Downey Jr. and Greg Berlanti plan to produce it as, I'm not sure if it's a movie or a series for HBO Max, but I'm hoping Samantha will tell us a little bit about that. And this book has been on just an astounding number of most anticipated books and best book lists for the summer, including NPR, Entertainment Weekly, the New York Post, Pop Sugar, and Oprah, the Queen of Reading. So best-selling author Jillian McMillan says that in For Your Own Good, Samantha Downing serves up another cast of deliciously mendacious characters in an exclusive private school setting where the deadly action drives a brilliantly tense, taut, and twisty plot. I may never look at my coffee in the same way again. Now, I myself am a coffee drinker, but my children are addicted to those coffee pods, and I got in my coffee pods and took a look at those, and you will definitely want to do some checking after you read Samantha's novel. So it is great fun. I can tell you, I mean, who doesn't love a good psychopath? I know, I just hear the word psychopath and I want the book. So I can assure you it is wonderful, and here to tell you all about both For Your Own Good and her other novels is the wonderful Samantha Downing. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for that introduction. That was fantastic. And thank you to Valley Books and to Pamela for having me here this evening. I am the author of For Your Own Good, which is my latest thriller to come out. And as Pamela said, I'm in New Orleans, originally from California, but I am in hot and humid New Orleans at the moment. So my latest book is about a teacher named Teddy Crutcher, who works at a private school called Belmont Academy, a private high school. He has just been named Teacher of the Year, and he has his own criteria for grading students and for judging students, which doesn't really have a lot to do with merit. And so he is sort of using his power. He's a teacher that recognizes his power and uses it to influence how his students succeed or don't succeed in school and in their college applications. In other words, Teddy is a psychopath. So what I wanted to do when I started this book was write about specifically a teacher that is a psychopath. Because the problem with psychopaths is you don't know they exist until they either get arrested or they do something horrible. And not all psychopaths kill people. So they don't always get arrested for anything. But I wanted to see what it would be like if you had a psychopath teaching our kids and what kind of effect that might have on the kids. This book is one that's told through a variety of perspectives, including one of the students whose name is Zach, and other teachers as well who are in the book. So you get a more complete story of what's happening at this school and what Teddy is up to. He is someone that is not only very judgmental and has his own system. Entitlement and wealth and class play a huge role in this book because it is a private high school. And because the students are very wealthy and they drive better cars than he does, and they have nicer clothes and they live in nicer houses, and they will go on to have far more prosperous lives than someone who's a teacher. Teddy is not wealthy. He lives on a teacher's salary. He did not attend private school. And this has all affected who he has become and why he is the way he is, having to teach these kids that have so much and don't understand how far along they are in life already. It is one of his missions to help these kids become better people. His methods, however, not so great. People get in his way. There's meddlesome teachers, there are meddlesome parents, and they get in his way, and it's not a good thing. So your coffee pods, as Pamela mentioned, you might want to check them from now on, and you'll understand what I mean if you read the book. And you may have an aversion to milk if you read the book. I don't want to give anything away, though. I don't want to give too much away about this book. Belmont Academy is a fictional high school that I came up with because I did not go to a private school. And as I said, I'm from California. Northeast schools to me are these old-fashioned, huge buildings covered in ivy. And this is the image I had growing up, and seeing this in movies and in TV, and seeing these Northeastern schools with this long history being depicted. And I don't know what it's like to go to one, but I wanted to imagine what it would be like. So I created Belmont Academy, which is just in the random Northeast. Probably Connecticut would be the most logical place, although it's not ever stated in the book. And it is a place where social structures are there's a variety of social structures everywhere. There's a social structure within the teachers, some of whom are wealthy and some of whom are not, some of whom attended Belmont and some of whom did not. There is a social structure between the parents and the teachers because the parents are paying for everything and the parents are the donors. So the parents think they can tell teachers what to do. And then there is the social structure between the kids and the teachers. So it's a microcosm of society fundamentally. I think all schools are, it's just more exaggerated when you have the added money that Belmont has and that the Belmont people have. So that's a little bit about this book. If you've never read one of my thrillers, the first thing to know is that they are funny. They have a lot of dark humor in them. I don't write books that are bleak or depressing in any way. They are tongue-in-cheek. They are satirical. There's a lot of sarcasm in them. So that's the kind of thing that I write. And it's hopefully a fun read. That's the idea, that when I write my books, I don't want anyone actually thinking there's a teacher out there killing people or that gets worried about their kids when they read my book. They might, but it's not that serious. So hopefully you have fun reading these thrillers, even though there is death and there is murder and there are psychopaths in all of my books. My first book came out in 2019 and it was called My Lovely Wife. There's a big knife on the cover. And this one is about a couple who has been married for 15 years and they live in the suburbs. They have 2 teenage kids and they get bored. So they decide to become serial killers. And this one, as Pamela mentioned, was optioned by Nicole Kidman and Amazon Studios. And that was announced right before the pandemic started. I don't know that there's been any movement on that. I hope that there is. And I hope that I get to see it one day on the screen, but it is supposed to be a feature film. So hopefully one day it will be out there and we will see Millicent and her husband killing people. And then For Your Own Good, as Pamela mentioned, was optioned by Greg Berlanti, who made You on Netflix and made The Flight Attendant on HBO Max and a number of other TV shows. He's a huge television producer. He partnered with Robert Downey Jr. It is supposed to be a limited series on HBO Max. And so hopefully one day we will see that soon. And then my second book is He Started It, which has this fabulous cover that looks like a movie poster of a woman and an explosion and a shovel. And it looks like it looks like a movie poster, which is about a group of adult siblings who go on a road trip across the country in order to get their grandfather's inheritance. So it's a very claustrophobic book because they're all stuck in a car together for so long. And there's a lot of family secrets and there's a lot of things going on in the car that nobody's talking about, but everybody knows anyways. So there's a lot going on in the book and as they're driving across the country from Atlanta to the West Coast. And I think that is all I have to say. I think that's the whole talk.
That was a fabulous talk.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I do agree with you. Your novels are very humorous. When I was reading my first introduction to your work was My Lovely Wife, and I was reading it probably a year before it came out. I got an early manuscript because I work quite closely with your publicist and he knows what I like. And he sent it to me and I was reading it. I'm like, oh, she's not really doing this. She's not really doing this. She is doing this. It was fabulous and fun. And yes, and it's the kind of thing, I get one of Samantha's novels. And if I have the pleasure of getting them in the summer, I get in my pool chair and I read the whole thing at once. And it's just this delicious way to enjoy a good psychopath.
Thank you.
Yes. And we have a question from the audience. They want to know if when you write your books, do you ever picture certain actors or actresses playing any specific parts?
I don't while I'm writing. No, that's not really how I see them. I don't see them as celebrities or actors. They're just sort of in my head and I don't even really see the details of them. Character descriptions are one of the things I don't like to do, physical descriptions, because when I'm reading a book, with someone else's book, I picture the character how I see them in my head, just based on their actions, not necessarily how the author describes them. So I don't have a specific person in mind, whether it's a celebrity or a non-celebrity. I don't start thinking about that till after. And I think if I were going to cast this movie, how would I cast?
That's exciting. I can't wait to see them on the screen either. When I was reading, I was thinking all of your books, they're very cinematic. So it should be great fun to see them on the big screen. And Christina Powers, my buddy down in Chicago, says she loves your novels as well. So
Thank you.
Another ringing endorsement. Christina reads at the speed of light, so she has a lot to compare it to. So thank you so much, Samantha. Her first two novels, He Started It and My Lovely Wife, are available in paperback. And the brand new For Your Own Good is in hardcover. And Valley Bookseller has signed book plates, which will be included with your order of any of those three titles until we run out. So either order tonight or stop in tomorrow at the store and pick up your copy. Thank you, Samantha. We shall see you again shortly. And I would now like to welcome our third author, Zoje Stage, to the screen. Welcome, Zoje.
Thank you so much.
Yes, she's joining us from Pittsburgh. And she is the author of this fabulous new novel, Getaway. This is her third book. Zoje burst onto the literary scene in the world of suspense with her explosive first novel called Baby Teeth. And the child in Baby Teeth makes the bad seed look like a little charmer. It is riveting. It was a USA Today bestseller, and it was nominated for a Bram Stoker Award for Superior Achievement in a First Novel. Her second novel was Wonderland. And now this month, hot off the press, Zoje is releasing Getaway. With this novel about three friends that set off on a hike in the Grand Canyon, Zoje told me that she hopes to do for camping what Jaws did for the ocean. Now, I have no desire to ever go camping, but after reading Getaway, my husband knows for sure that there is no chance that he will ever get me out of a hotel. If you're planning a getaway of your own, I do recommend this novel. It is best enjoyed poolside, I think, at a resort with lots of security staff. And so I'm going to let her tell you more about it. Please welcome Zoje Stage.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here tonight. As Pamela said, I am the author of Getaway. And since Getaway just came out yesterday, I'm only going to be talking about Getaway tonight. But if you have any questions about Baby Teeth or Wonderland, please feel free to ask them. So Getaway is about three friends. Imogen is our protagonist, and they're all in their mid-30s. Imogen is a novelist and a bit of a recluse, and she's very close with her sister Beck, who is a primary care physician, And they met a friend in high school named Tilda, and they have all been friends since then. Except in recent years, there has been some distance between Imogen and Tilda. And it's physical distance in part. Tilda lives in California and Imogen lives in Pittsburgh, but it's also stemming from some issues that happened in the past. And Imogen had tried to put them to rest, but they've kind of been creeping up on her and haunting her, and she's finding it harder and harder to maintain this friendship with Tilda. Another thing that Imogen has recently experienced, she was exploring her Jewish roots and had recently joined a synagogue. And this is not a spoiler because this is how the book opens. She was in the process of going to her synagogue on a Saturday morning, and she hears shooting inside. And she hides in a bush. And that event really messed with her head, because not only was it frightening, but she really never forgave herself for hiding. And even though logically she knows there was nothing she could have done against a gunman who was slaughtering people in that building, she's never forgiven herself for just hiding. That's how she views it, is that she just ran and hid. So her sister Beck has become very concerned about her mental and her emotional state. She's really become even more reclusive. So Beck has this wonderful idea that she's going to take the three of them, Imogen, Tilda, and herself, on a backpacking trip to the Grand Canyon. And this is going to be their week in nature, their chance for them to bond with their surroundings, to reconnect with each other. And it's going to be an incredible healing experience. The end. No, I'm just kidding. If that were the end of the book, it would not be a suspense novel and it would not be very interesting. But I'm always very careful. I don't want to give away any spoilers, so I'm going to tell you this instead. Many years ago, when I was 18, my family and I were backpacking in the Grand Canyon. And it was my sister, my dad, and my mom. And we were on I believe it was a 6-night trip. And on one of those nights, we were staying in a very remote inner canyon called Salt. And this was just a very, very small camping area. Only one individual or group could stay there at a time. And we were the people who could stay there. We had registered permits with the backcountry office. Anyway, so while we were setting up our camp, this guy shows up. And he just kind of shows up out of nowhere and he starts chatting with us. And it was a little bit confusing because we didn't know if he thought he was staying there. We weren't really sure what he was doing. And when I started thinking about writing this novel, it started with friendship. Friendship is absolutely at the root of this story and what happens when people start out as friends in high school and then they grow and they move in different places, but there's still the kernel of friendship. And I really wanted to explore these kinds of really important relationships and long distance friendships. But anyway, so when I started thinking about the book and I was thinking about that event at Salt when the scary guy came by, and maybe it's because I've always had a creative imagination, but when I remembered him, he looked like a character from Gunslinger. Like I remember him having a hip holster. Of course, in reality, he was not walking around the Grand Canyon carrying a gun. So I asked my sister what she remembered about the guy who came and stopped at Salt. And she had remembered that he had said he had just gotten out of prison. So then I asked my dad what he remembered about the guy who came at Salt. Because my dad has an incredible memory. I'm very jealous. And especially for anything about the Grand Canyon, he remembers everything. So he said, yes, this guy came by. Yes, he had said he had just gotten out of prison and he was just walking around the Grand Canyon by himself. And then he proceeds to tell us, just in a very conversational way, that while he was walking around the canyon, at some point he had crossed paths with a lone female ranger. And he had realized that he could have picked up a rock and bashed her in the head and no one would have ever known. And when I asked my dad about this, because I don't think I knew this at the time, he said that at that point, my dad, started looking around for a rock or something that he could use as a weapon in case this guy maybe had bad intentions toward us, or maybe wasn't going to leave. So fortunately, in our story, the guy walked on and it wasn't an issue. But when I started thinking about writing this story about friendship and how great it would be to have him in the wilderness somewhere, I remembered this guy and this situation. And I started thinking, what would happen if a group of people were backpacking in the Grand Canyon and they met a guy like this and he did not walk on? So that's the origins of the story and the setup for the story without giving too much away. And while it may seem on the surface, like, you know, the book looks really scary on the cover. And obviously with the setting, one might just assume it's tons of action. And I won't say that there isn't action. There definitely is. There's a lot of very realistic hiking and backpacking in there. But for me, the essence of this book is really more psychological suspense. Because once this man shows up, these three characters who are very different from each other, Beck and Imogen and Tilda, have no chance to speak to each other about what's going on or what they should do. And Imogen, being a novelist, is, you know, she really likes to study human behavior and try to draw conclusions about people and sort of psychoanalyze people. So it becomes a very psychological book in that regard. And since she's a very petite person, not unlike me, she realizes she really can't make a physical confrontation with this guy. And so from her perspective, the best thing that she could do for their group in this situation is to sort of think of him as one of her characters and to really try to understand him, to almost build some kind of really deep connection with him, a friendship, something, to make him see that they're human and that maybe that would be their way out. But it becomes pretty obvious that Beck and Tilda have very different ideas about what they should be doing in this situation. And this is where it really becomes a problem, that there is so much tension and animosity lingering beneath the surface between their relationships with each other, because they don't inherently know how to work together. So there are kind of these two battles going on through the whole book, which is, you know, the external battle of this situation with this person and the internal battle of their relationships and trying to get to know each other and to understand each other in a really important way so that they can survive this situation. And somebody asked me recently if that event like really affected the rest of that particular backpacking trip or how it impacted other camping or backpacking that I did. And the truth of the matter was, like, that particular trip, you know, we just went on our way and we didn't really think about it that much. And it really wasn't until I got older and, you know, just had other experiences as an adult. I mean, I was 18 at the time, and your perspective of who you are in the world is very different at 18. And so it really wasn't until I got older that I really did start to get a little bit more paranoid when I was out and about. And, you know, especially when my sister and I would go camping together, we would always go just off season to some place that was completely deserted. That's the way we liked it. But, you know, sometimes we would find ourselves in a place where it would just be us and maybe like one other guy. And I did always carry with me after that just a little bit of paranoia of like, maybe it's not perfectly safe. And, you know, it's one of the interesting things, which I think everybody does this, that when you go on vacation, your expectation is that it's going to be fun and it's going to be fine and it's going to be great. And you just think you're immune from the troubles of the world because it's your vacation. And maybe that event did make me think like, yeah, maybe the real world does follow you wherever you go, and maybe you really can't escape it. And in spite of the fact that I would like people to be able to enjoy this book and be frightened and have a very kind of chilling experience with it. I really don't want people to be terrified of the Grand Canyon or the wilderness. In spite of everything, some of the most formative experiences of my life have happened in nature. And I think it is a wonderful thing to experience. So maybe don't shy away from it completely. Just go in with a little bit of caution and common sense, and not with the attitude that just because you're on vacation, it's going to be perfect. So I would like to show you, hopefully this will show up well enough. I actually have some photos, incredibly, of that trip. And I have other photos that are very much mentioned because I mentioned a lot of different locations and equipment in the book. So like the first night when they're camping in the Grand Canyon, they're at a place called Hermit Canyon. And this, hopefully you can see it. This was our camp at Hermit. And you can see we don't use a tent. Whenever it was nice out in the canyon, we never used a tent. And that's how I have my backpackers in the book doing it as well. So we just have a little plastic ground cloth and our sleeping bags out. So that was Hermit. And then I couldn't believe this when I found this photo. This is a photo at Salt. As you see, there is a little piece of plastic kind of looking like a tent hanging up there. We were concerned it was going to rain, but this picture, I took this picture probably within 2 hours of that guy showing up at our camp. And when I was going back looking through my pictures, you know, hoping I'd have some fun stuff to share online, like I found this one and I showed it to my dad, and I'm like, Dad, is this when the weird guy came by? And I was like absolutely shocked that I had this picture. And the last picture I have for you, there's a pivotal event in the book. You know, there's a lot of discussion about backpacking gear and how they need to do things to keep their stuff safe. And one of them is that they always hang their food in a bag from a tree. And in the book, it's described as a blue nylon bag. In reality, we had a purple nylon bag, but I just thought this was kind of cool to have this shot of the food bag. Because there's an incident with the food bag, which is like a pivotal thing in the book, which sort of starts their dangerous descent into, I don't want to say hell, I won't say that. My last thing I wanted to show you, having to do with props. I think this is so funny. So another thing that is described often in the book, and you can see them in the back of this picture, are the bamboo walking sticks. Our family always used bamboo walking sticks. For one thing, they're really inexpensive. You can buy a big piece of bamboo at any sort of a garden center. They're very lightweight, they're very strong, they're very versatile. So yeah, we've always used bamboo walking sticks. And I have in my possession, I hope you can appreciate this. This is my very first walking stick that I ever had. And yes, it's the length of my arm. This was my walking stick from when I was 7 years old, and that was the first time I went backpacking, and I just thought it was amusing that I still had that. So I hope that gives you a little taste of some of the equipment and the feel of what it would be like to read this book and to put yourself in the place of these characters. And so if you get a chance, please give Getaway a read. Thank you so much.
Oh, Zoya, I have so many questions. After seeing that picture, now I have to ask, there were trees and it looks like some caves and things where people could hide. So how did you know for sure that the creepy guy had walked away from your family?
Well, fortunately, let me bring up Salt again. So this was Salt. And if you could actually see this in its broader context, it's like, yes, there is this big rock here, which we have our camp sort of set up against, but the rest of that area was really quite open. And it was almost like at the edge of a butte. So we actually had a very far view, especially of what was in front of us. And I believe that behind us, it would just be some sort of a switchbacking trail going up out of that inner canyon. So we would have seen, if he had actually stayed in the Salt area, we would have seen him.
Okay. Well, that makes me feel better about the situation. We did have a question from the audience. We have a reader who would like to know if you knew how this book was going to end when you started writing.
I did know. I'm a pantser, in the world of writing, there's the pantsers and the outliners, the people who write outlines or figure out their whole plot, and the people who write by the seat of their pants. I call my particular process a directional pantser because I absolutely do make up 95% of it as I go along. But before I actually sit down to start writing a novel, I know three things, important things other than my main character. I know exactly where I'm going to start the novel. I know something that happens in the middle, and I know what the end is. If not the absolute end chapter, I know it's something that's happening near the end. So I'm writing the whole time toward that end. So yes, I did know.
Oh, well, it is a non-stop thrill ride. I absolutely inhaled it. I think this was another one sitting read for me. So it's just really exciting. I know everybody will enjoy it. Perfect summer or early fall reading. But I know we have copies of Baby Teeth at the store, so maybe I could entice you to just give us a little elevator pitch on that one for anyone who might be interested.
Sure. Baby Teeth, is in its essence a bad seed story. It's about a mute 7-year-old girl and her stay-at-home mom, and they have a very fraught relationship between the two of them. And the mother starts to become convinced that her daughter wants to kill her. So another very psychological book because it's told in both POVs between the mother character and the 7-year-old. So you can kind of see both of their perspectives and how they kind of misinterpret what the other one is doing.
Great. Well, let's invite Sujata and Samantha to come back and join us on screen. And we do have book plates at Valley Bookseller for all three authors. If you order any of their books, you will receive a signed book plate with it until they are gone. And that's whether you order online or stop in the store. We have a question from the audience, but I did want to let everybody know this program is being recorded and it will be available tomorrow to watch. You can either go to the Valley Bookseller Facebook page or the Literature Lovers Night Out Facebook page, or I hope the authors will be sharing it on their social media locations tomorrow as well. So there's plenty of opportunity to catch the show if you tuned in late, or if you're not able to watch it tonight or want to share it with friends and your book clubs. But we did have a question from the audience. They are wondering what each of you are going to say will be your favorite book this summer, or what you're currently reading. So Sujata, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, I just read The Other Black Girl
That's really good.
by Zakiya Harris, and I think there's a middle name that I'm forgetting.
Dalila. Zakiya Dalila Harris. She was actually on the program earlier this summer.
Oh,
So if anybody
really?
wants to go back to the archive, you can certainly watch that program. It's at lit-lovers.com. All the
Yeah.
programs are
So it's like it's I guess kind of it's a suspense mixed with horror novel, but it's set in the very genteel world of publishing in New York City. And as somebody I've had 15 books published, and I just didn't really understand what it's like at these publishing houses, and these kind of crazy relationships between people, and how stressful the work is. And put on top of that, what if you're the only person of color there? So I got a lot out of that. How about anybody else?
Yes, Samantha?
I just read a book that's coming out in September, the Hank Felipe Ryan book, the new
That's
Hank
good.
Felipe Ryan. I love her books. It's called Her Perfect Life, and it's great. It's a great book. So put that one on your list for September.
Yes, and we will be hosting the book club buffet on September the 14th, and Hank Felipe Ryan will be appearing at that. So check the Valley Bookseller website for more information about registering. And Zoje, what are you reading?
I've read some great books this year, I have to say. I'm currently reading, I am halfway through this. I hadn't been so busy this week with, a little thing like a book launch, I would have read that just straight through. It's a very, very interesting book. And some of the other really cool books I've read this year, I had the honor of blurbing a debut novelist named Katie Latari, and she has a book called Dark Things I Adore coming out in September. And that was sort of a psychological suspense novel in the art/academia world. And it was a really beautiful, haunting, very compelling book. And I also really enjoyed, and I also blurbed, Rachel Harrison's upcoming book, Cackle. And that's coming out in October. And it not only has like my favorite cover, I love that cover so much, but that book was just so enjoyable to read. And even if like you're an arachnophobic, you're gonna want a pet spider after you read the book. It's
And that was
very
called Cackle, did you say?
Cackle. Yeah.
Cackle. And the
Mhm.
author again?
Rachel Harrison.
Rachel Harrison. Okay, I shall look for that. That sounds exciting. So many great things coming out this fall. It's going to be a big, big year for the books. I think everybody will be able to do their entire holiday shopping list at their local independent bookstore. Did any of you have any questions for each other tonight?
I have a question.
Yay.
Well, and it deals with like a little problem I have. When I get to the really dangerous parts of my books, and so I write mysteries that are traditional mysteries, so they're not super, super violent, but I get really, really uncomfortable. So I wonder what it's like writing these psychological novels where you know about the bad person right away. Like for me, it's a cast of characters, everybody's guessing, but you're sharing that. Like, do you get scared when you write? Do you get in a dark place, Zoya and Samantha?
I personally don't get in a dark place, and it's partly because, you know, when you're inside a character's head and you know them, I think you naturally have empathy for them. And so even with my very worst characters, I always knew so much about their background and their situation that I never viewed them as just evil. I always really understood what their situation was in life that brought them to that moment and had a certain amount of sympathy for them. So honestly, I mean, sometimes I feel really, really badly for my protagonists. I don't know if that's normal, but I do.
I would agree with that. I don't go to a dark place. None of my books have any traditional heroines or heroes whatsoever. They're all shades of gray and closer to dark gray than white. So they're not, none are good. It's just a spectrum. So I think it's just we all have the capacity inside us to make bad decisions, and despite we may not be wired as psychopaths, but we all can make the wrong decision or a bad decision or a decision that hurts somebody. So I don't, it doesn't bother me. And as for violence, I don't do any graphic violence in my books. There's despite how many murders there are, it's a lot of it is implied, and you can go on to visualize it if you like, or you can just turn the page and keep reading.
Sujata shared with us that she's at work on the 4th installment of the Perveen Mystery Series. Samantha, are you still busy with your book launch, or are you actually hard at work on a 4th novel already?
I'm doing both at the moment. I am writing the 4th novel and still doing my online promotion. The book For Your Own Good comes out in the UK tomorrow.
Okay, so more excitement. And Zoya, what about you? I know you just launched it on Tuesday, but are you working on a next project, or what are you up to besides being busy doing lots of events?
Yeah, actually, I have a novella. My first novella is coming out next year, probably in May. And I just delivered my 4th novel to my agents. So we're in early stages with that. But yes, I did write a book during the pandemic.
And did
yeah.
Mulholland Books, your publisher, already buy that one, or is that?
Not yet. I don't think my editor's even seen it yet.
Okay. So more
early
excitement
stage
from all of you.
yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you all so much. It's just about 8 o'clock here, so we're going to wrap up. I once again listed all the links for the books tonight in the chat box. All you have to do is copy and paste those into your browser. It'll take you right to Valley Bookseller, and you can fill up your shopping cart tonight online. or the store opens at 10 o'clock in the morning, and we'll hope you hop in and take a look at the books in the store, as well as all the other wonderful things that are available. Plenty of staff is on hand to help you with any shopping for yourself, for gifts, or for children. We have a little something for everybody at Valley Bookseller. It's a great team, and I'm so proud to be part of this entirely women-owned and operated bookstore. And it was my absolute honor to host the three of you tonight: Sujata, Massey, Samantha Downing, and Zoje Stage. Tomorrow, we are actually having a live event in Stillwater, something we have not done for well over a year now. It's called the Readers Reunion, just a little ways up the street from Valley Bookseller at the Zephyr Theater. We will be hosting 10 Midwest authors. It's free, come one, come all. There's a cash bar. We're going to be outside having lots of literary fun, so I hope you'll join us tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock. After that, please go to the website at Valley Bookseller or lit-lovers.com and check out all the upcoming programs. We have scheduled so many exciting things for fall. Virtual events, September 8th at noon. We have got Paula Hawkins. You might know her from a little book that did rather well called Girl on a Train. And she's got a new one called Slow Fire Burning that's coming out. That is a ticketed event. You can register at the Valley Bookseller website. September 14th is the book club buffet that I mentioned that Hank Philippi Ryan will be appearing at. We have 32 authors featured at this literary feast. If you've got a book club, please join us. $10 ticket. Your ticket can be redeemed towards any of the books by the featured author, and you will get a recording of the event as well, prizes, and just all kinds of excitement. And these are all 32 authors that are willing to meet with your book clubs. So please check out the website. We have Heather Morris in October with her new novel, Three Sisters, sort of a semi-sequel to The Tattooist of Auschwitz, and lots more excitement coming up. And if you enjoyed tonight's program, it will be recorded. You can watch it again, share it with friends, or tell friends that they should tune in. Literature Lovers Night Out happens semi-monthly, and we are always so thrilled to bring these wonderful national and international authors to your attention here in the Twin Cities area. So once again, I cannot thank these three amazing women enough. Get your copies of the Bombay Prince, Getaway, and For Your Own Good at Valley Bookseller. As I said, we've got signed book plates until we run out. And thank you for reading. Thank you for supporting independent bookstores. And thank you to Zoje, Samantha, and Sujata for so generously sharing their time with us this evening. Happy reading to all, and enjoy the rest of your summer. Stay safe out there. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, authors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.